Motion man Hinton. Fake it. Wilson. Intercepted. Picked off by Willie Gay. And Gay is going to take it all the way. Touchdown, Kansas City.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Did you know that with a win over the Houston Texans on Sunday, the Chiefs would clinch their 7th consecutive AFC West title? It would move Kansas City into a tie with the LA Rams between 1973 and 1979 for the second longest streak of consecutive division titles in NFL history, dating back to 1970. The New England Patriots hold the current record with 11 AFC East titles in a row from 2009 to 2019. What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? It's Friday, and this is KCSN Update, our daily Chiefs show and podcast presented by our friends at DraftKings. Thanks for hanging out today. I'm BJ Kissel, former Chiefs reporter. Now I'm working with a bunch of other good people trying to build a new outlet for Kansas City sports fans here at KC Sports Network, covering all our local teams with some fantastic content. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or follow us on your favorite podcast platform by simply searching KCSN. You can find all of our channels that way. Since it's Wednesday, soon we'll be joined by YouTube legend and co-host of Bootleg Football, Brett Kollmann. But first, a word from DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is my go-to in betting on the NFL this holiday season. They have the best app that's easy to navigate, and I love all the different plays that they offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. And check this out. Right now, everyone can earn up to a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. My personal favorites are the anytime scorers. You don't have to be a betting expert, and it doesn't matter what the score is of the game. You always have a shot to win. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code KCSN. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook using code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, Chiefs fans, you know what time it is. Let's bring on Brett and talk a little Chiefs Broncos and preview a little Chiefs Texans on Sunday. Before we get into this, Brett, how's the last week been? How are things going?
Things are going well. Surviving the season, barely. Kind of grinding my way through it. I'm getting ready for Shrine Bowl in a month-ish or so, which I think you're also going to be out there. And then I'm debating.
We'll see you there.
Trying. I don't know if you guys are just going straight to Super Bowl after that, because it's also in the desert. If the Chiefs are going, maybe you book some last minute hotels. We'll see, but that's my decision.
We'll check the old KCSN budget and see where we're at that point. But yeah, looking forward to the Shrine Bowl. Always a good time. Hopefully a better time than we had there last year. Not that there was anything wrong with the Shrine Bowl and all of that, but it was sandwiched right in the middle of the Chiefs' loss to the Bengals in the AFC title game. So we'll be out there for the AFC title game again this year. So hopefully we're all celebrating a little bit more and we don't walk around practices with everybody just saying sorry to us the whole time, which wasn't exactly fun either.
Yeah, that sounds safe. A bunch of Chiefs fans in Vegas the day they go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
good idea.
What could go wrong? It's just a bunch of, you say that. It's just a bunch of football nerds. You know these guys. They're just watching practice film and getting ready for the draft the day after they win the AFC title. They'll still be focusing on the draft. It's a great event. Eric Alco does a fantastic job out there. Really looking forward to going back again this year and get some great content. Last year, it was the Isaiah Pacheco interview. Like that was it was cool when they drafted him, because we had to sit down with him when we were out there and had that content, some really good stuff from him. But let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs win over the Broncos. Let's pivot a little bit here. A lot of takes from Chiefs Kingdom that we've been getting on KCSN Update from all our different guests, from Matt Miller and Nate Taylor yesterday. Curious to get your thoughts as somebody that isn't necessarily living in Chiefs Kingdom and isn't a Chiefs fan per se. So besides being a fan of what they do out on the field, but curious your takeaways from that Chiefs win over the Broncos and what underlying things moving forward we might be able to take away from that game as the Chiefs finish out the regular season.
Mostly is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Uncharacteristic mistakes. There was one turnover that was like classic Chiefs where Andrew Wiley got absolutely bulldozed by Jonathan Cooper, and then Pat kind of like on one leg while Wiley was crashing into him, tried to make a throw that he just shouldn't have, and it got picked off at the end of the second half. Wiley going to be a problem, by the way. That's like my one main like that's going to be an issue in January take. The other two turnovers, the first one and the second one, I think Josie Jewell got both of them. Not very characteristic, but reading out one rat where Travis Kelce kind of sits down because the other linebacker went out to the flat and Travis Kelce kind of sat down in the middle, leveraging himself away from Jewell, and Pat just straight up missed, threw it right to him.
He let him back into it a little bit.
And you could see Kelce was like, oh, didn't expect the ball to go over there. That was just a miss from Pat. And then the other one to Jewell, like it's cover 3. And I don't know if he just didn't see it or, maybe he thought they were in something that they weren't. And again, threw it right to Jewell. He doesn't do that every game. He rarely ever does it ever. So I'm not super worried about like, did the Broncos find some sort of schematic key to beating the Chiefs? Like, it's one rat and it's cover 3. Like, it's not a big deal. It just happens sometimes, and Denver's a stadium that just does that to teams, I don't know why.
Yeah. And I'm interested. They haven't recorded yet the show since we've been recording, but I know because I cut the videos for it that the breakdown. So Matt Castle, Matt Hamilton, that first interception that we're talking about is one of the ones that they're going to break down. And you get a really good view of it from the end zone angle of, Pat seemingly was moving Jewell with the way that he was looking. He kind of tried to manipulate him to move out of that spot, and he did. And Josie Jewell was moving away from where Kelce was coming from, and they made a fantastic play coming back the other way. And if Pat doesn't lead him towards Jewell, but towards the backside defender that was kind of trailing Travis on that play, it wouldn't have been intercepted. So whether it was a misread or he underestimated how quickly Jewell was going to be able to change directions, because he did move him with his eyes away from where he wanted to, but then Jewell just made a fantastic play. So I'm interested to check out their breakdown on that one. But, one of the things that has kind of been taken from that game here locally in Kansas City that a lot of people, are discussing on like local radio, the local beat writers and bloggers and everything is that game give us any information or any indication that the Chiefs will not be able to achieve their ultimate goal of going and winning a Super Bowl? I know it sounds like a big statement, and I don't think it does. If you heard me on the postgame show right afterwards, but it's a prevailing thought that some of these issues that the Chiefs are having that people didn't think they were going to have coming into this season could ultimately hold them back. From your opinion, from all the football that you've watched, and you watch all the teams, not just the Chiefs. And that was kind of little context here. That was kind of my point is every team has issues. Mm-hmm. There's not that team out there that's just going to come and dominate. Even the Bills have issues. The Bengals have issues on their team. Not that the Chiefs have figured that out because they haven't beat them. We know that. But it's not so dire that a weak second half against the Broncos team is all of a sudden changing everyone's opinion on what this team could do. So asking you, do you have any of those reservations about what you thought the Chiefs could do? Maybe not just following this Broncos game, but what you've seen over the last, I guess, since the start of the season.
I think the point you made that every team has issues is key, because pretty much everybody except Philadelphia has some sort of Achilles heel out there. Something that might cause them problems. For the Chiefs, it's the tackles. Like, again, I say it every week, their tackles are still 2 out of the top 3 tackles in the NFL in terms of most pressures given up. That interception, the second one that Mahomes threw, was directly because Wiley got run over by Jonathan Cooper. And I think that, if Joey Bosa, let's just say the Chargers make the playoffs, they got about 80% chance, right? Chargers make the playoffs, Joey Bosa's back. and it's 3rd and 7. We need a play because it's the Chargers and they're always going to be dead even with the Chiefs, regardless of what the record is. And Joey Bosa is going up against Andrew Wiley one-on-one. Are you feeling good about that? I'm not. But that being said, the Chargers also have issues. They can't really throw deep. Their offensive coordinator is arguably the least creative in the NFL. Their pass protection's terrible. Their secondary's banged up. Like, they got issues too that I think cancel out what the Chiefs' issues are. The only question is, will that weakness lead to some of the game-changing plays that we saw against Denver, where that game was completely wrapped up, and then all of a sudden it wasn't?
Yeah.
If that turnover happened against, say, Buffalo, happened against Cincinnati, something with less issues than the Chargers have right now, like, yeah, I would be concerned, but there's no flawless team out there. The Chiefs just have to hope that their main flaw, which is their tackle play, doesn't ruin everything else that they do really well.
Yeah. Is there anything, before we move on to the Texans and previewing that matchup on both sides of the ball, is there anything schematically in that game between the Chiefs and Broncos that stood out to you by either team, as far as how they went in and approached it, or ways they attacked, ways they had success or didn't have success? Anything in general from watching that game that kind of made you raise your eyebrows and you were a little surprised about?
Not necessarily surprised. I really liked how they used McKinnon. And I it's, especially in the screen game, you don't often see like screens in the red zone work that well, but I guess when you have Trey Smith going out there and almost getting charged with capital murder on Justin Simmons, like, yeah, it'll work. But I really love that call. I think they, in terms of how they were studying red zone coverage tendencies, I think they realized, like, hey, we might be able to get numbers out here, because they tend to like plant guys on the goal line and leave them out there on their own. That was a great call. I would say that other than the interceptions, like schematic, like the play calls they had on during the interceptions were actually pretty good. They just happened to pick it off. Schematically, I don't think they really did much different than they normally do, but I did like a lot of the stuff they did in the red zone, because the Broncos are a very good red zone offense, and the Chiefs, we said it last show, just had to find a way to get points down there, and they did.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about during the week, and people listening, if they've listened to the other shows, that I'm curious and I'm interested to get, or hopefully they'll get McCole Hardman and or Kadarius Toney back and insert some more of those jet sweep, the ghost action stuff that has been such a big part of Andy Reid's playbook that they really haven't had for the last few weeks, with Toney being out, and they're seemingly going pretty slow with him with the hamstring, with the soft tissue injury or issue that has kind of plagued him throughout his career, some of those soft tissue things. And then McCole Hardman, this would be the first week that he'd be able to come back off IR with his injury. So I think that's a big part of Andy Reid's playbook, and hopefully they have him back for the game against the Texans. So let's start with the Texans, and let's start on the defensive side. So we're talking about the Chiefs offense. What should Chiefs fans know about the Texans defense? What stands out to you? What are they good at? What are they bad at? Where could the Chiefs attack? Loaded question. There you go.
Yeah.
Just tell us, Brett, what's going to happen?
Shocker. They play a lot of cover 2. I know Chiefs fans might be surprised by that, but they are literally the highest percentage team in cover 2 on third down in the entire league. They run it 33% of the time, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but when you factor in, like, that includes third and shorts, that includes third and mediums, third and long, every situation, they play cover 2 if they can. And, they do have some young DBs that have really come into their own. Jalen Petrie last week had a whale of a game at safety. He's really, really explosive, hard hitter. He's actually somebody who I compared to Tyrann Mathieu coming out, and I think eventually he will be that type of guy for them. Had some tackling issues early on in the year, but especially last game seemed to have resolved them. And, they were hanging tough with Dallas for a reason. Like, that defense is feisty. The DBs they just play angry. They got a whole bunch of little Isaiah Pacheco's out there in the secondary that just hate the very concept of offense. Defensive line and pass rush is not good. So if there was ever a time to run the ball a lot, it's probably today. And in terms of getting big plays, cover 2 is not unbeatable deep. You just have to do it the right way. So if we can get like a seam route off switch releases, or that kind of backside middle read route with is that MVS is playing,
Yeah.
right? He's fine.
Yeah.
That backside middle read route to MVS, like what we saw in the Tampa game, that would
Yep.
hit big because again, they don't have anybody that can run with him down that middle seam. So they're going to get a couple big plays here against cover 2, and they have a whole bunch of different concepts they can use to get it. But mainly, I would like them to just run, because pretty much the only time they load the box pre-snap is on first down when they're predominantly in cover 3. It's not impossible to run the ball against, how you fit the run from cover 3. There's a whole bunch of different ways the Chiefs can still do it. So I would like to see them just run and run and run and run and run and get out of there with a win.
If it's not Jalen Petrie, is there anybody else in that defense that if the Chiefs do struggle for any reason against a team that they should not struggle against, besides self-inflicted issues, is there anybody on that side of the ball that stood out to you at any point that could step up and make plays and make things difficult for the Chiefs offense?
Ooh, I'm trying to think here.
It's not a great side, or depending upon how you're looking at it.
Well, I'm trying to, because they have so many new and keep in mind, this is coming from a Texans fan. Like this is the best draft, in my opinion, that they've had in a long time. So like Christian Harris, which I know Chiefs fans were looking at him in the draft because they're like, oh, we probably could use another linebacker. Super fast, extremely rangy. Used to play DB in high school. I think, they drafted him partially because they wanted to play a lot more cover 2 because he's fast enough to kind of be that hole dropper. Not necessarily against MVS, because who is, but he's somebody who I think Pat should be weary of when he's back there because he's a lot rangier than Josie Jewell and he can make a lot of the plays Josie was doing. Malik Collins has been a solid player for a really long time. Jerry Hughes still doing it at his age. If there was somebody who I would be worried about, against Wiley, I'd say it's Jerry Hughes. And then, Jonathan Owens, he's a huge hitter. He broke up one against Michael Gallup last week, that touchdown. Not necessarily the best in coverage, but if you're within a 5-yard box of him with the ball, he's going to put you on the ground. So again, they got some dudes on defense. They're a feisty defense. Are they a great defense? No, because they're not fully stacked up front, but they're fast, they're rangy, and they still play hard despite being the worst record in the league.
All right, let's switch to the other side of the football and the 2-quarterback Houston Texans system they got going on that maybe without Dameon Pierce, I think I saw as well. So what stands out to you about the Texans offense and what should Chiefs fans know going into this matchup on Sunday?
Not having Dameon Pierce, if he doesn't play, is a problem because this team runs inside zone, power, and then more inside zone. Like they don't really stretch the edges at all because they don't have a whole lot of like long speed and burst at the running back position. It's like Dameon Pierce is the burstiest guy. And I'd say Pierce short area quickness better than long speed. So they don't really run a whole lot of outside zone because if you're going to do that, you want a guy with a little bit better long speed. They can threaten the front side and force everybody to overcommit. So they run more inside zone and power with him that kind of makes use of what his skill set is. But Rex Burkhead, like he's not fast enough to really run outside zone. Dare Ogunbowale, not fast enough to run outside zone. Like they are a run between the tackles team consistently over and over and over again. They've kind of made this weird 2-quarterback system work haven't made it work. Tried to make it work over the last couple games where it's like Kyle Allen's the starter. Now Davis Mills the starter. Now they're both getting equal reps in practice, and we don't know which one's going to be the starter. So I would assume Davis Mills is going to be out there, but I don't know at this point. Like they're losing with both of them either way. So I wish that I could give you a scattering report on the quarterback. I just don't know which one's going to be out there. And then they've been also pretty banged up at receiver as well. So like they really do rely on, hey, Dameon, here's the ball, go do something. Like that has been their offense at times this year. And if he's not playing, it could be pretty ugly, not going to lie.
It'd be really good news for a Chiefs defense that has really struggled tackling over the last few weeks. Because if you watch Dameon Pierce run, it's similar to Chiefs fans who haven't watched him like Isaiah Pacheco, but like he runs through more tackles than that. He runs very, very angry and is a very difficult person to bring down. So if he doesn't play, I think that's a welcome sight for a Chiefs defense. At least last few weeks has really struggled tackling. One one of the players I want to ask you specifically about, not just because of this matchup, but because of some of the narratives surrounding the Chiefs tackle situation, and that a trade target that Chiefs fans have been talking about for the future being Laramy Tunsil, the Texans left tackle, who, most fans are aware of. His name has been thrown out in years past as far as possibly being a trade target if the Chiefs don't bring back Orlando Brown Jr. or don't franchise tag him and do look elsewhere for a veteran proven player. What are your thoughts on Laramy Tunsil, where he's at in this career, and compare him as a player, as somebody who's watched him being a Texans fan, to what the Chiefs have in Orlando Brown Jr. right now?
So Orlando Brown has asked for Laramy Tunsil money. The difference is Laramy Tunsil is actually worth Laramy Tunsil money. Like, especially in the first half of the year, he was playing like arguably the best left tackle in football. Extraordinarily gifted as a pass protector. The term dancing bear, I think, absolutely applies to him. Really explosive, technically refined. Like, he is everything you could want in a left tackle. And even though, like, when he first got his deal from Houston, because he bent them over a barrel because they traded all these assets for him and then didn't immediately pay him. So he's like, okay, I'm going to make it hurt on the back end. And then he got a gazillion dollars. But, like, he's been one of the only players that's been worth the money. So, and keep in mind, he's only 28.
Yeah.
Like, left tackle's still got another 6, 7, 8 years to go on top of being 28. Like, especially like really, really good ones tend to play a long time. So, if the Chiefs are giving up assets and money and everything to go secure him for a long term, like, yeah, I think it's absolutely worth it, because you have a $500 million asset in Patrick Mahomes that's getting absolutely creamed out there on every third and long. So why wouldn't you invest whatever you could to make sure that investment doesn't get hurt? I think it's worth it for the Chiefs as a franchise, especially looking at the tackle play that we've seen recently. It's just been straight up horrible.
Yeah, he's got 1 year. Just looking at his contract, he's got 1 year left on his deal. The base salary of $18.5 million. So it is within the framework of when he could be traded going into this offseason. And so obviously there'd be some sort of an extent. You would expect there to be some sort of an extension offered with any kind of trade like that. And anytime you're giving up valuable trade or valuable draft picks plus money for a player that's kind of double dipping, you've got to be right on it. The Chiefs, kind of surprisingly, and then when it happened, I was surprised that they made the trade and they gave up high assets for Orlando Brown Jr. and then didn't give him the long-term contract. And then we know what happened last year with the Chiefs reportedly offering him a deal they thought was fair. He bet on himself, didn't take that, wanted to take more. And you made the point, I believe last week, saying it may have been one of the best things that ever happened to the Chiefs that Orlando Brown Jr. didn't accept that big deal. So if you could take that money that you had offered Orlando Brown Jr., even a little bit more for a player who's proven to be better throughout his career, and give that to Laramy Tunsil next year after giving up some draft picks, I don't think Chiefs fans would be entirely against that right now. Is there anything else, anybody else on the offensive side of the ball? I know you said their wide receivers are banged up. You see Brandon Cooks, obviously another trade target. His name was thrown out there. A guy that's performed well throughout his career. Nico Collins, at least from a fantasy football perspective, was a hot name coming into this season on how he would do. Is there anybody that Chiefs fans should be worried about? If Dameon Pierce doesn't play in this game, who could hurt you on the Texans offense?
I really do love Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks as a receiving duo. And like Nico Collins, I think, is a really exciting young player that if the offensive structure around him was better, I'm talking, better quarterback, truly just better quarterback. Like, I think that we would see him do a lot of damage, because he's one of those guys where even when he's covered, he's not covered. And that's going back to, when we saw him at the Senior Bowl, where he just showed up and he lost like, I think 15 or 20 pounds, something like that, in the year that he took off, because he took off a COVID year, right? And so he lost like 15 to 20 pounds and then showed up at the Senior Bowl and was way faster, way more explosive than we had ever seen from him. Still had that 40-inch vert and the catch radius and everything like that. But when he remade his body going into the NFL, we're like, oh, that's different. That's why he went in the third round, And I think that if he was in a more well-balanced, well-run offense with a better trigger man, I truly think that we could see him be like 1,000-yard receiver. He just happens to not be in that type of structure right now. So if we're talking about Chiefs trade targets, I don't think Houston's giving him up. I think they're more likely to give up Brandon Cooks than they are to give up Nico Collins because he's a young, exciting asset. And he is one that I think the entire NFL should watch because I think that he's really underrated.
While you were talking about that, I was double checking and looking up the stats on Pro Football Focus for Laramy Tunsil, who is the number 1 graded tackle in football this year. He's allowed 10 pressures this season.
Yeah, it's like 2 games for Wiley.
Andrew Wiley has given up 39 pressures, and Orlando Brown Jr. has given up 40 pressures. So not great.
No,
not great, Bob. All right, let's get into a little prediction time. What do you expect to happen? What is your prediction for the game on Sunday between the Chiefs and Texans? Again, talking with Brett Kollmann from Bootleg Football and the YouTube legend, the lore, Brett Kollmann.
I would say the Chiefs jump out to an early lead, similar to what happened against Denver, but I don't think they make the same mistakes they made against Denver because not to call the interceptions fluky, but we've seen this for 6 years now. Patrick doesn't make mistakes like that often, especially back to back within like 90 seconds of each other. And then game on the line, fourth quarter, he doesn't do that. So I would expect a similar kind of jump out to an early lead, shock and awe, because this defense is rather predictable when it comes to the types of coverages they play. So I think they're going to have a great plan against it. Again, I say this as a Texans fan, I don't enjoy predicting them getting blown out. But they're probably going to get blown out early. And then at that point, Pacheco time, not going to mess around, run, get out of there with a win. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, the line right now, the Chiefs are favored by 14 points in this game, which is
I don't know if I would take the over on that. Not because I don't think they're going to win. I just think like, okay, maybe they go up like 21-3 early, right? And that would be covering, but then I think they take their foot off the gas and just eat clock, and Houston gets within 2 touchdowns by the end of it. So I wouldn't take them to cover, definitely take them to control the game and win, which I would say a lot of Chiefs fans are more interested in.
Yeah, taking their foot off the gas is something that
they always do.
Andy Reid has been criticized for here locally quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you on the Patrick Mahomes interceptions. I think a couple of those were just fantastic plays, but not something you'd necessarily expect Mahomes to do consistently throughout. And before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of other things. First, your thoughts on Jalen Hurts now being the odds-on favorite to win the MVP after Patrick Mahomes. Seemingly it's because of the 3 interceptions he had against the Broncos. They kind of flipped. Now Jalen Hurts being the MVP. How do you see that playing out as we sit here going into week 15?
It's a fascinating discussion because everybody has a different opinion of what MVP is. Some people take a lot of stock in the most valuable player part, like the V in MVP, which I would say is Patrick Mahomes, because again, he's creating arguably the most productive Chiefs offense ever with a not great tackle situation and a receiving core that doesn't have Tyreek Hill in it. I would say that he is the most valuable player in the NFL. Some people see it as who's the best player on the best team. That's Jalen Hurts. Philly's arguably the best team. Wouldn't be surprised if Philly and KC meet in the Super Bowl, in the Andy Reid Bowl. I could see the argument there. Some people, quite frankly, are tired of the Chiefs nationally.
Yeah.
Like there are voters out there that are tired of the Chiefs. They want new blood, and Jalen Hurts qualifies as new blood.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm tired of the Chiefs, but I do see a lot of national media that really I'm trying to say this delicately.
Don't say it delicately, because I'm about to say something that I don't think is my conspiracy. I'll give you this beforehand. Chiefs fans give you engagement when you say anything critical of their team.
Yes,
and all it does is incentivize national media to doubt and say things negatively about the team. It's happened for years. It happens anytime you call Josh Allen the best quarterback in the NFL. Happens anytime you say the Chiefs can't beat the Bengals. All of these kinds of statements, Chiefs fans will give you all of that engagement. And I think that's led to a lot of the things that we see on a national media level. You and I both know a lot about how this business works on the financial side. You need engagement, you need impressions, you need downloads and views and all of those things. And Chiefs fans will give you those things in spades a lot more if you say negative things about their team than if you say positive things about their team. And it's just the way the business works. And it's just created a cycle in which it's never ending. So not to say that they don't actually not like the Chiefs or that they are tired of them, but I think a lot of it also has to do with they're incentivized to create engagement, and Chiefs fans will give it to you if you don't say, or if you say negative things about their team.
It's not even that. I just like that is part of it. But I think there are some national media that resent some things about Chiefs Kingdom in the sense of how passionate they are, and they get kind of butthurt about it. And I truly think there are people out there that would say vote for Joe Burrow as MVP just to spite Chiefs Kingdom. Like just to like Joe Burrow having a phenomenal season is his name in the hat. Absolutely. I would vote for Mahomes over him. But I know there's plenty of national media that's like, you know what? Chiefs Kingdom gotten real loud over the last 3 years. I'm kind of annoyed with Nick Wright being on my television celebrating every Monday morning. I'm going to cast my vote for somebody. Like, that's just how the human psyche works. Some people don't even dislike the Chiefs. They just dislike how often they have to talk about them. And so they will do whatever they can to not talk about them, including handing MVP to somebody else.
Fair enough. And I think the MVP race, sadly, if it is ultimately between Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes as we go down the stretch, Patrick Mahomes needed to put up some big numbers and some big games against some bad teams. And I think a lot of it on Jalen Hurts, I don't know if no matter what Mahomes does down the stretch, because they don't play any good teams, if Jalen Hurts on Christmas Eve in that afternoon game against the Cowboys goes out and balls out against the Cowboys in a game that everyone's going to be watching.
Wrapped it up.
There's not a whole lot we can do. So if he is dominating Micah Parsons, if he's making the defensive player of the year in the NFL miss and do all these things and they go out and win because Jalen Hurts made plays, I don't think there's anything from a narrative standpoint that Patrick Mahomes can do going up against the Broncos again or going up against the Texans this week in the Raiders of the last game of the season. I don't think there's going to be enough unless he just completely goes off. So I think a lot of the MVP is going to come down to how good is Jalen Hurts in that game against the Dallas Cowboys. All right, Brett, before we let you go, we appreciate you for stopping by. As always, before we let you go, what are you working on right now? What can Chiefs fans find on any of your channels?
Well, I feel really bad that I cursed the shit out of the Chiefs with my last video. Completely ruined them for a solid 2-week period, at least offensively.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to weaponize the curse for good. And I'm doing one on why the Vikings defense is so horrifically, historically bad. And explaining all of the schematic issues, the personnel issues, everything, because maybe I can turn them around with this weird voodoo magic that I seem to have.
Somebody once called, and I'll say somebody, Pete Prisco, back in 2013, called the Chiefs the worst 9-0 team in NFL history. And I had brought that was when they faced a bunch of backup quarterbacks. There was a sound logic behind his thought process and everything. But I threw out the same idea of were the Vikings the worst 10-2 team in NFL history, because Justin Jefferson, absolute stud. Dalvin Cook, they've got some guys who can play, but don't know if they were quite on the same level as the Cowboys, the Eagles, some of the other teams in that division. So I'd be interested in watching that video. And I don't think you cursed him any more than I did, saying it's time to put Chad Henne in when they got up 27-0. And there's immediately like interception, touchdown. I'd be like, well, and then everybody was coming after me for good reason.
I turned off the game, and then the pick started happening like right when it turned off the game, and I got a DM from my buddy who's with the team, and he's like, turn it back on.
I will say, though, big news here, George Karlaftis has a sack in 3 straight games. So if he can average a sack and a half over the final 4, he'll get within striking distance of that Derek Thomas record that I had prognosticated before the season that kind of looks dumb now.
If he actually,
what do you
so speaking of late season narratives, if he goes on a run here and breaks DT's rookie sack record,
It's going to take a lot.
but Hutchinson's only got what, like 6?
He's got 7.
7?
They're close on pressures. But yeah, I don't.
He could get it.
Between, you think they would still? I mean, I have a bet on George Karlaftis to win the defensive player or defensive rookie of the year award. I'm just not sure with Sauce Gardner and Woolen and some of these other guys that have made more splash plays, more talked about, could be different. But yeah, if they end up with the 1 seed, he's strong down the stretch. Maybe he can flip some voters that want to vote for, a good rookie on a good team.
I think Sauce
really solved an issue.
I think some Sauce and Woolen are going to split the DB vote collectively,
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people are going to vote for Sauce and a lot of people are going to vote for Woolen. And then some people are just going to be like, who's the best rookie pass rusher? Because they just don't vote for DBs, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird pie chart where there's going to be like 4 guys getting pieces of it. But if the Chiefs have the 1 seed and he's, getting sacks and he has the most sacks, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like box score scouts and votes for Karlaftis and he squeaks one out. Not totally impossible.
He's got 3.5 sacks right now, and he needs 7 over the final 4. So we need a big, we need a 3-sack game. We need a 3-sack game. But in fair, it's not completely out of the question. They're not playing great teams. They're not playing really agile quarterbacks. He's just going to need that 2 or 3 sack game, and then really get on a roll here. And then more people will be talking about it. More people will be paying attention. He has that multi-sack game and gets within striking distance going into that final game against the Raiders. Then you know what I'm going to be talking about all week, going into a game that hopefully doesn't mean a whole lot. But as things stand now, it's going to take a couple losses by the Bills for the Chiefs to sit people in that January 8th game. Because even now, even if the Bills lose 1, you can't lose another game because they have the tiebreaker on you for home field. So it's looking like the Chiefs are going to be playing out through the rest of the regular season unless the Bills drop a couple of games.
Yeah. For the record, by the way, I would vote for Sauce. I want to make that clear. I'm just trying to, for Chiefs fans that are listening, I want to put a positive map forward.
George Karlaftis has been solid. I think, not to open up a whole nother discussion, but Craig Stout tweeted out this week that Chiefs currently 4th in the NFL in sacks as a team. I think they have 42 sacks right now with 4 regular season games to go. Last year, they had 31 total sacks as a team, and it was something we talked about all offseason. And so it's not just been one guy. Obviously, Chris Jones doing very, very well. I think he's got 11 or 12 sacks right now. Yeah. But yeah, he's got 11 sacks right now. So obviously he's been an absolute beast, but there have been a lot of dudes that have stepped up. I mean, Carlos Dunlap's got 4 sacks. Frank Clark's got 4 sacks. Talking about Karlaftis having 3.5. Mike Dana has got 3 sacks. There's a lot of guys that are stepping up to help that pass rush that I was going to say he's been good this year outside of the game against the Bengals in which they couldn't even touch Joe Burrow, which was the issue in that game, in my opinion. But
you just need L'Jarius Sneed to rush more. That's all.
Just send the house more often. Just blitz all the DBs. All right. Brett Kollmann, man, we appreciate it. We appreciate everybody for listening and or watching this episode of KCSN Update. Please hit that like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We've got a lot of great content throughout the week, and not that you got to listen to every single show that we've got. Pick out the ones that you like. We put out enough content by design that hopefully you can find the few that speak to you, that you enjoy listening to, and we appreciate your support of what we got going on here at KC Sports Network. We'll see you next time.